Remember when your parents told you not to eat too much candy because it would rot your teeth? Well, turns out that was the least of our worries back in the 80s. What if I told you that some of our favorite childhood snacks contained ingredients that are now classified as toxic, carcinogenic, or just plain dangerous? The neon-colored drinks, the artificially flavored chips, those mysteriously long-lasting cakes, they weren't just unhealthy, some of them were basically edible chemistry experiments gone wrong. Today, we're counting down 20 deadly junk foods from the 1980s that would absolutely be banned if they tried to sell them now. And trust me, number 1 will make you wonder how any of us survived childhood. So grab your hazmat suit and let's dive into this toxic time capsule. Number 20, Jell-O Pudding Pops. Bill Cosby's favorite frozen treat might seem innocent enough, but the original Jell-O Pudding Pops from the 80s were a nutritional nightmare wrapped in a friendly package. Each pop contained a whopping 15 grams of sugar. That's almost 4 teaspoons in one small treat. But here's where it gets interesting. The original formula used artificial sweeteners, including saccharin, which was still under investigation for potential cancer risks at the time. The FDA had actually tried to ban saccharin in 1977, but public outcry kept it on the market with warning labels. The real kicker? These pops contain something called carrageenan, a thickening agent derived from seaweed that's now linked to inflammation and digestive issues. Studies have shown it can cause intestinal damage in laboratory animals. The chocolate variety also contained artificial brown coloring agents that were later found to be potential carcinogens. General Foods marketed these directly to kids with Saturday morning cartoon commercials, making them a lunchbox staple. By 1985, they were selling over $100 million worth annually. That's a lot of questionable chemicals going into young bodies. The formula was quietly changed in the late 80s, and the original version disappeared forever. When Popsicle tried to bring them back in 2004, they used a completely different recipe. Wonder why. Number 19, Squeezit fruit drinks. Nothing screamed 80s kid quite like ripping the top off a Squeezit and chugging that neon liquid straight from the plastic bottle. General Mills launched these in 1985, and they were basically sugar water, with enough artificial coloring to stain your tongue for hours. Each 6.75 ounce bottle packed 23 grams of sugar, that's almost 6 teaspoons. But sugar was the least concerning ingredient. The bright colors came from dyes like Red 40, Yellow 5, and Blue 1, which were already controversial in the 80s. Yellow 5 in particular was linked to hyperactivity in children and required warning labels in some European countries. The fruit flavors were entirely artificial, created with chemical compounds that mimicked real fruit taste. Some varieties contain sodium benzoate as a preservative, which can form benzene, a known carcinogen when combined with the vitamin C. The bottles themselves were made from a type of plastic that's now known to leach chemicals when exposed to heat. And let's be honest, these things sat in hot warehouses and car trunks all summer. By the time you drank one, you were getting a cocktail of plastic compounds along with your fruit drink. They finally discontinued them in 2001, probably for the best. Number 18, Dunkaroos. Dunkaroos hit shelves in 1988 and instantly became the ultimate lunchbox flex. The concept was simple: cookies shaped like kangaroos that you dipped in frosting. What could go wrong? Well, let's start with the frosting. That little compartment of vanilla frosting contained partially hydrogenated oils, aka trans fats, which are now banned in many countries. We're talking about fats that literally increase bad cholesterol while decreasing good cholesterol. The cookies themselves were loaded with high fructose corn syrup and artificial vanilla flavoring. But here's the really concerning part. The frosting contained titanium dioxide to make it bright white. This same ingredient is used in paint and sunscreen. While it was considered safe for consumption in the 80s, recent studies have linked it to cell damage and possible cancer risks. The European Food Safety Authority now says it's not safe as a food additive. Each package delivered about 130 calories and 7 grams of fat. And let's be real, most kids ate multiple packages. The chocolate chip variety was even worse, adding artificial chocolate flavoring and more questionable dyes. Betty Crocker marketed these aggressively to children, even creating a cartoon kangaroo mascot. They disappeared from US shelves in 2012, though they've recently made a comeback with a healthier formula. The original 80s version, that would never pass today's food safety standards. Number 17, Sea EctoCooler. When Ghostbusters became a phenomenon in 1984, Hi-C saw an opportunity. Enter EctoCooler, a blindingly green citrus drink that looked like it came straight from a nuclear reactor. This wasn't just green, it was an unnatural glowing green that could only be achieved through serious chemical intervention. The color came from a combination of Yellow 5 and Blue 1 dyes, creating that signature slime color that left your mouth looking like you'd been drinking antifreeze. Each juice box contained 25 grams of sugar and only 10% actual fruit juice. The rest, high fructose corn syrup, artificial flavors, and enough citric acid to strip the enamel off your teeth. But the real concern was the packaging. Those aluminum-lined juice boxes were sealed with an adhesive that contained trace amounts of benzene compounds. When stored improperly, which happened constantly in school cafeterias, these compounds could leach into the drink. The drink was so artificially preserved, it had a shelf life of over a year. Think about that. A fruit drink that could sit unrefrigerated for months without going bad, natural juice spoils in days. What exactly were we drinking? The product was reformulated several times before finally being discontinued in 2001, though nostalgia brought it back briefly in 2016 with a very different ingredient list. Number 16, Hostess Choiles. Imagine taking a Twinkie, already a monument to processed food, and covering it in a waxy chocolate coating. That's a chocodile. And in the 80s, these things were everywhere. The chocolate coating wasn't really chocolate at all. It was chocolatey coating, made primarily from hydrogenated palm kernel oil, which is basically trans fat in its purest form. This coating had a melting point so high it could sit in vending machines in Phoenix in August without melting. The cake itself was the standard Twinkie formula. Enriched bleached flour, high fructose corn syrup, and a cocktail of preservatives, including sorbic acid and sodium stearoyl lactylate. But the 80s version had something special. They used artificial vanilla made from petroleum derivatives. Yes, petroleum. The same stuff that goes in your car. The cream filling was essentially sweetened shortening with more trans fats and artificial flavors. Each chocodile packed 240 calories and 11 grams of fat with virtually no nutritional value. They had a shelf life measured in months, possibly years. Urban legends claimed they could survive nuclear war, and honestly, looking at the ingredient list, that might not have been far off. They were discontinued in the 90s, brought back briefly, then disappeared again. When Hostess went bankrupt in 2012, nobody fought to save the chocodile formula. Number 15, Crystal Light. Crystal Light seemed like the healthy choice in 1982. No calories, sugar-free, vitamin C added. What wasn't on the label was that this powder was basically a chemistry set you mixed with water. The sweetness came from aspartame, which was only approved by the FDA in 1981 after years of controversy. Early studies had linked it to brain tumors in rats, and the approval process was so contentious that the FDA commissioner who approved it later went to work for the company that made it. But aspartame was just the beginning. The powder contained maltodextrin, a processed starch with a higher glycemic index than sugar. The citric acid was so concentrated it could damage tooth enamel faster than soda. And those bright colors. Achieved with dyes that are now banned in several countries. The natural flavor listed on ingredients could legally include hundreds of chemical compounds. The most popular flavor, pink lemonade, got its color from red 40, which studies have linked to hyperactivity and behavioral problems in children. Each packet made 2 quarts, and families were mixing up pitchers daily, thinking they were making a healthy choice. The 80s marketing pushed it as a diet aid, but research now shows artificial sweeteners can actually increase sugar cravings and lead to weight gain. The formula has been changed multiple times since then, removing some of the most controversial ingredients. Number 14, Shark Bites Fruit Snacks. Shark Bites swam onto shelves in 1988, and kids went crazy for these gummy sharks. The gimmick was the white sharks. They were supposed to be mystery flavor, but really just had extra artificial flavoring. These weren't just sweet, they were engineered to be addictive. Each pouch contained corn syrup, sugar, and modified cornstarch as the first 3 ingredients. The fruit content? Basically non-existent. Just enough concentrated pear juice to legally call them fruit snacks. The texture came from gelatin and carnauba wax. Yes, the same wax used on cars. This gave them that signature chewy but not quite gummy consistency that stuck in your teeth for hours. The artificial colors were intense. Blue 1, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6 created sharks in unnatural neon colors. These dyes were already facing scrutiny in the 80s, with some studies linking them to ADHD symptoms, but here's the really disturbing part, the preservatives. These contained BHA, butylated hydroxyanisole, which the National Toxicology Program has listed as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. They also had sulfites, which can trigger severe allergic reactions in sensitive individuals. Each pouch delivered 80 calories of pure processed sugar and chemicals. Betty Crocker marketed these aggressively with TV commercials during Saturday morning cartoons. They reformulated them in the 90s and eventually discontinued the original formula entirely. Number 13, New York Seltzer. New York Seltzer looked sophisticated with its clear glass bottles and natural branding. Launched in 1981, it was marketed as a healthier alternative to soda. No caffeine, no sodium, all natural flavors. What they didn't advertise was that natural flavors is one of the most misleading terms in food labeling. These flavors were created in labs, extracted using chemical solvents like hexane, which is also used to extract oil from seeds. The sodas were sweetened with high fructose corn syrup, about 35 grams per bottle. But the real issue was the carbonation process. In the 80s, some bottlers used a carbonation method that could introduce trace amounts of benzene into the beverage. When combined with sodium benzoate, a preservative, and vitamin C, it could form even more benzene. The FDA didn't catch this issue until 1990. The bottles themselves were problematic. That trendy clear glass, when exposed to light, it could cause the flavor compounds to break down into potentially harmful chemicals. The root beer flavor contained sassafras extract, which the FDA had banned as a food additive in 1960 due to cancer concerns, but somehow it kept showing up in natural sodas. By 1994, the original company was bankrupt. When the brand was revived in 2015, they used completely different formulations and manufacturing processes. Number 12, Reeses Pieces ET made Reeses Pieces famous in 1982, but these colorful candies were hiding some serious health hazards. The candy shells were colored with dyes that are now banned in many countries. Yellow 6, used in the Yellow Pieces, has been linked to adrenal tumors in animals. Red 40 in the Orange Pieces is derived from petroleum and has been connected to hyperactivity in children. Even the Brown Pieces used artificial coloring instead of actual chocolate. The Peanut Butter Center wasn't much better. In the 80s, it was made with partially hydrogenated oils, pure trans fats that are now banned by the FDA. The sugar content was staggering. A single serving, about 51 pieces, contained 24 grams of sugar. But here's what's really scary: the manufacturing process. In 1985, several batches were recalled due to salmonella contamination from the peanut processing facilities. The preservatives included TBHQ, tertiary butyl hydroquinone, a petroleum derivative that can cause nausea, delirium, and ringing in the ears in high doses. Just 1 gram can cause serious side effects. While the amounts in candy were small, kids were eating handfuls at a time. The candy coating also contained confectioner's glaze, which is actually shellac, the same substance used to polish wood. Hershey's has since reformulated these multiple times, removing the most controversial ingredients. Number 11, Capri Sun. That silver pouch seemed so futuristic when Capri Sun launched in the US in 1981. Kids loved stabbing the straw through, parents loved that it didn't spill. Nobody talked about what was actually inside. First, the fruit juice content was only 10%. The rest was high fructose corn syrup and water. But the real issue was the lack of preservatives combined with the packaging. Those pouches were perfect breeding grounds for mold. In the 80s, before they added preservatives, Capri Suns would develop mold inside the pouch that you couldn't see from the outside. Kids would suck down fermented, moldy juice without knowing it. The company received hundreds of complaints about kids getting sick. When they finally added preservatives, they chose sodium benzoate, which can form benzene when combined with the citric acid already in the drink. The pouches themselves were made from layers of aluminum and plastic that weren't recyclable and potentially leached chemicals into the acidic juice. The wild flavors like Pacific Cooler were created entirely from artificial flavors and colors. Red 40, Yellow 5, and Blue 1 turned the drinks into neon potions. Each pouch contains 16 grams of sugar, that's 4 teaspoons, in just 6 ounces. They've since reformulated and added clear bottoms to the pouches so you can check for mold, admitting there was a serious problem with the original design. Number 10, Fruit Roll-Ups. When General Mills introduced Fruit Roll-Ups in 1983, they revolutionized snacking. A flat sheet of fruit you could peel off plastic and eat. Kids went wild. Parents thought they were giving their children fruit. In reality, they were handing them concentrated sugar sheets with a side of chemicals. The first ingredient was corn syrup, followed by sugar, followed by more corn syrup in a different form. Actual fruit way down the list as pear concentrate, chosen not for taste but because it was cheap and colorless. The texture came from modified cornstarch and partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil. That's right, trans fats that could be molded into sheets. The colors were achieved with red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and blue 1. But here's the truly disturbing part, the manufacturing process. These sheets were created by spreading the mixture thin and heating it to extremely high temperatures. This process created compounds called acrylamides, which California now requires cancer warnings for. Each roll delivered 50 calories of pure processed sugar that stuck to your teeth like edible plastic. Dentists reported a spike in cavities that they traced directly to fruit leather products. The original 80s formula was so artificial it had an indefinite shelf life. They've since reformulated to include real fruit and remove some artificial colors, but the original version was basically candy disguised as health food. Some varieties even had cream cheese or chocolate chips embedded in them, completely abandoning any pretense of being fruit-related. Number 9. Jolt Cola. All the sugar and twice the caffeine. That was Jolt Cola's actual slogan when it launched in 1985. While other sodas were going diet, Jolt doubled down on everything bad for you. Each 12-ounce can contain 71 molecular of caffeine, the legal maximum allowed in soft drinks at the time, but it wasn't just the caffeine. The sugar content was astronomical. 50 grams per can. That's 12.5 teaspoons of sugar in one serving. The formula included phosphoric acid strong enough to dissolve rust, which also happened to leach calcium from your bones. The caramel coloring was made using ammonia processing, creating compounds that California now lists as carcinogens. But teenagers didn't care. This was liquid rebellion in a can. Computer programmers and college students made it their official beverage, often drinking 6 to 8 cans during all-night sessions. The health effects were immediate and obvious. Emergency rooms reported spikes in caffeine overdoses, especially among teenagers who mixed Jolt with alcohol. The combination of massive sugar and caffeine doses created a crash so severe that users often needed more just to function. Some schools banned it outright. The original formula was so extreme that when the company tried to revive the brand in 2017, they had to significantly reduce both sugar and caffeine to meet modern regulations. The 80s version would literally be illegal to sell today. Number 8. Pop Rocks. Pop Rocks seemed like magic when they hit American markets in the late 70s and exploded in popularity through the 80s. Pour them on your tongue and feel them explode. What kids didn't know was they were eating pressurized carbon dioxide gas trapped in a sugar matrix. The manufacturing process involved heating sugar to 280 degrees Fahrenheit and injecting it with the CO2 at 600 pounds per square inch. When the candy cooled and you ate it, the gas exploded out of its sugar prison. The urban legend that mixing Pop Rocks with Coke would make your stomach explode wasn't true, but the real dangers were subtler. The candy contained artificial flavors and colors including Red 40 and Blue 1. The popping sensation was so intense it could actually cause minor burns to sensitive mouth tissue. Kids would pour entire packets directly onto their tongues, getting concentrated doses of citric acid that could cause chemical burns. But here's the weirdest part. Quality control in the 80s was sketchy. Some batches contained rocks and persistent safety rumors. When they came back in the late 80s under new ownership, the formula was significantly weakened. The original 80s version was essentially candy explosives. Number 7. Flintstones. PushUp Pops. Riding on the Flintstones' popularity, Nestle created these push-up sherbet tubes in the early 80s. They looked innocent enough, just frozen sherbet you pushed up through a cardboard tube. But these things were a chemical nightmare. The sherbet contained propylene glycol, the same ingredient used in antifreeze and brake fluid. While it's generally recognized as safe in small amounts, each push-up contained enough to cause stomach upset in sensitive individuals. The neon colors, Yabba, Dabba, Dew, Orange, Bedrock Berry, came from concentrated doses of artificial dyes. The orange contained Yellow 6 and Red 40, both linked to hyperactivity. But the real issue was the stabilizers. To keep the sherbet from melting too fast, they added cellulose gum, gar gum, and carrageenan. This cocktail of thickeners could cause severe digestive issues, especially in children who ate multiple push-ups in one sitting. The cardboard tubes were coated with wax that contained petroleum derivatives. As the push-up melted, kids would inevitably ingest some of this wax. The natural and artificial flavors included compounds like amyl acetate, banana flavor, which is also used as paint solvent. Each push-up contained 15 grams of sugar and virtually no actual fruit. They were reformulated in the 90s and eventually discontinued, replaced by versions with real fruit and fewer artificial ingredients. Number 6. Hubba Bubba Bubble Gum. Hubba Bubba launched in 1979 with one selling point. It wouldn't stick to your face when bubbles popped. What Wrigley didn't advertise was how they achieved this miracle. The gum contained synthetic polymers, basically plastic compounds, that prevented sticking but weren't exactly meant for human consumption. The original formula used butylated hydroxytoluene, BHT, as a preservative, which studies have linked to cancer in animals. The flavoring agents were where things got really weird. The original flavor contained amyl acetate, also used as industrial solvent. The watermelon flavor used chemicals that could trigger asthma attacks in sensitive individuals. But the biggest issue was the sweetener combo. sugar, corn syrup, and in sugar-free versions, sorbitol and mannitol. These sugar alcohols are notorious for causing severe digestive issues. Kids would chew entire rolls in one sitting, ingesting massive amounts of these laxative compounds. The pink color came from red 40, derived from petroleum. The soft texture was achieved using synthetic rubber compounds and plasticizers that kept the gum flexible. Some of these plasticizers are now banned in children's toys due to health concerns, but in the 80s, kids were literally chewing on them. The gum base itself was a trade secret, but leaked documents later revealed it contained polyvinyl acetate, the same ingredient in white glue. The formula has been significantly changed since then. Number 5, Carnation breakfast bars. You're gonna love it in an instant. Carnation marketed these as a healthy breakfast alternative in the 80s. One bar equals a complete breakfast, they claimed. In reality, you were eating a candy bar disguised as health food. Each bar contained 11 grams of sugar and was coated in chocolatey coating made from hydrogenated palm oil. Pure trans fat. The filling was even worse. Corn syrup, more hydrogenated oils, and artificial flavors pretending to be peanut butter or chocolate. The fortification was achieved by spraying synthetic vitamins onto the bar after processing. These synthetic vitamins, particularly the iron supplement, could cause severe stomach upset when consumed on an empty stomach. Exactly when people ate these breakfast bars. The preservatives included BHA and BHT, both potential carcinogens. The artificial vanilla came from petroleum processing, and the natural flavors could legally include over 100 different chemical compounds. But here's the real kicker. The protein came from sodium caseinate, a highly processed milk derivative that many people couldn't digest properly. Combined with the sugar alcohols used as sweeteners, these bars were basically guaranteed to cause digestive distress. Each bar packed 200 calories but left you hungry an hour later due to the blood sugar crash. They were quietly discontinued in the early 90s when nutrition science finally caught up with their marketing claims. Number 4, Tab Clear. In the Invisible Cola Wars of 1992, Coca-Cola created Tab Clear, and it was possibly the most chemically complex soft drink ever made. This wasn't just clear cola, it was a chemistry experiment. To make a cola clear, they had to remove all the caramel coloring and replace the entire flavor profile with artificial compounds. The result was a drink that tasted vaguely like cola, but was entirely synthetic. The sweetener was pure aspartame, which was still controversial in the early 90s, but the real issue was the flavoring system. To recreate cola taste without any actual cola ingredients, they used a cocktail of artificial flavors including ethyl methylphenyl glycidate, which is now restricted in many countries. The preservatives included sodium benzoate, which could form benzene in the presence of vitamin C. The phosphoric acid was concentrated enough to dissolve teeth enamel on contact. The clear appearance was achieved using a filtration process that removed all natural compounds, leaving only the chemicals. Marketing claimed it was lighter and purer, but in reality, it was more processed than regular cola. The psychological effect was bizarre. People reported headaches and nausea, possibly because their brains expected cola flavor from a dark liquid. It lasted less than a year on shelves, and Coca-Cola later admitted it was designed to fail and take Crystal Pepsi down with it. The formula was so artificial it couldn't even be recycled into other products. Number 3, Keebler Tato Skins. When Keebler launched Tato Skins in 1987, they promised baked potato taste in a chip. What they delivered was possibly the most artificial snack food ever created. These weren't made from potatoes at all. The base was corn and wheat flour molded to look like potato skins, then topped with cheese and bacon that contained no actual cheese or bacon. The cheese flavor came from a dozen artificial compounds, and the bacon was simulated using smoke flavoring derived from burning wood treated with chemicals. The fat content was astronomical. Each serving contained 10 grams, mostly from partially hydrogenated soybean oil. Trans fats in their purest form. The seasoning included MSG, disodium inosinate, and disodium guanylate, a trifecta of additives that hyperactivated taste buds and triggered addictive eating patterns. The sour cream variety added titanium dioxide for whiteness, the same compound used in paint and sunscreen. But the manufacturing process was the real horror show. The chips were formed using industrial extruders at extreme pressure and temperature, creating acrylamides, compounds. California now requires cancer warnings for the artificial bacon bits were made from textured soy protein treated with caramel coloring made using ammonia processing. Each bag delivered 150 calories per serving, but the serving size was laughably small, about 12 chips. Most people ate the entire bag, consuming over 900 calories of pure processed oils and chemicals. They disappeared by the mid-90s, and nobody tried to bring them back. Number 2, Orbit's soft drink. Clearly Canadian's Orbits, launched in 1997 but developed through the late 80s and early 90s, was the soft drink that looked like a lava lamp. Those floating balls weren't fruit pieces, they were Gellon gum spheres filled with artificial flavoring. Gellon gum is produced by bacteria fermentation, and while it's considered safe now, the manufacturing process in the 90s often left bacterial endotoxins in the final product. These endotoxins could trigger immune responses in sensitive individuals. The suspension system that kept the balls floating was a complex mixture of xanthan gum, Gellon gum, and other stabilizers that created a drink with the viscosity of motor oil. The flavors, raspberry citrus, blueberry melon, were entirely artificial, created using compounds like ethyl butyrate and isoamyl acetate. The colors were achieved using combinations of blue 1, red 40, and yellow 5 in concentrations high enough to dye fabric. But here's the truly disturbing part, the preservative system. To prevent the Gellon balls from breaking down, they used a combination of sodium benzoate and potassium sorbate at maximum legal levels. When exposed to light or heat, these preservatives could break down into compounds that cause nausea and headaches. The drink had to be refrigerated constantly, and if it got warm, the balls would dissolve into a slimy mess. Many people reported severe stomach issues after drinking it. The texture was so universally hated that it became a punchline. It lasted less than a year before disappearing forever. Number 1. Burger King's enormous omelet sandwich. In 1985, Burger King quietly tested what would become the deadliest fast food item of the decade, the enormous omelet sandwich. This wasn't released nationally until 2005, but the test markets in the mid-80s got the original version, and it was a heart attack on a bun. We're talking about a sandwich that contained 730 calories and 47 grams of fat, 18 of them saturated, but the calorie count was just the beginning of the horror show. The omelet was made from a liquid egg mixture that contained 15 different ingredients, including propylene glycol, antifreeze, artificial butter flavor derived from petroleum, and enough preservatives to keep it fresh for weeks. The cheese wasn't cheese, it was a cheese product that contained less than 51% actual cheese, mixed with emulsifiers, artificial colors, and trans fats. The sausage was 40% fat, loaded with sodium nitrites linked to cancer, and contained meat from multiple animals ground together with soy fillers. But wait, it gets worse. The sauce was basically mayonnaise mixed with high fructose corn syrup and artificial flavors. The bun contained azotocarbonamide, a chemical used in yoga mats and shoe soles to increase elasticity. When heated, this chemical breaks down into compounds linked to respiratory issues and cancer. The entire sandwich delivered 1,100 mg of sodium, almost a full day's worth in one meal. Here's the truly terrifying part. People often ate these for breakfast with hash browns and orange juice, adding another 500 calories and 25 grams of fat. The test market data showed people who regularly ate these had gained an average of 2 pounds per month. Emergency room visits for heart-related issues spiked in test market areas. The original 80s version was so extreme that when they finally launched it nationally in 2005, they had to reduce portion sizes and reformulate almost every component. Even then, it was discontinued after massive public backlash. The fact that anyone thought this was acceptable to serve as breakfast food shows just how insane the 80s were. And there you have it, that's 20 deadly junk foods from the 1980s that would absolutely be banned today. From drinks that grew mold in invisible pouches to sandwiches that contained yoga mat chemicals, we basically spent an entire decade eating science experiments. Did any of these toxic treats make it into your lunchbox? Which one shocked you the most? Drop a comment below and let us know what other 80s foods traumatized your digestive system. And hey, if you survived eating this stuff, you've definitely earned a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video about dangerous 90s toys that somehow made it past safety regulations. Thanks for watching, and remember, if it glows in the dark or has a shelf life measured in years, maybe don't eat it.